Where's she been, Serena? And who am I? That's not a secret I'll never tell. You know you love me. XOXO. Gossip Girl.
Young mellow cut scoring is my dish, boy. I'm CP3 cause I be dishing and handling the rock, chef cooking with the pot, boy. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the money.
I be in the hood, drop regular. Toilet paper in my Porsche cause I'm...
Today, we will be learning about the federal funds rate. Federal funds rate is the interest rate at which banks charge each other for overnight loans. The current rate is 0% to 0.25%, which is the lowest it has been in years.
Why is it so low?
Because the Fed is waiting to see improvement in the labor market and the inflation rate to return close to 2%. Also, in 2008, the Fed flooded system with reserves as financial crisis took place. They did this in order to push interest rates down. They now don't have enough Treasury bills to soak up the amount of reserves the Fed has created. They also bought longer-term U.S. Treasury bonds and are the world's largest holder of U.S. government debt.
What does the Fed have to do with the federal funds rate?
Well, monetary policy influences the federal fund rate by open market operations, buy or sell Treasury securities, bills, notes, or bonds. FOMC meets every 6 weeks, which is the Board of Governors and 7 regional bank presidents.
For quite a while, the federal funds rate has been a range from 0% to 0.25%. A low federal funds rate implies expansionary monetary policy by the Federal Reserve, a low interest rate environment for businesses and consumers. Low interest rate environments stimulate aggregate demand and employment. Banks must sometimes borrow reserves from other banks on a short-term basis to meet reserve requirements. The interest on these borrowings, the federal funds rate, is highly influential because it indirectly impacts interest rates for businesses and consumers throughout the economy. The rate is determined by the supply of money, which is controlled by the Federal Reserve. To enact monetary policy, the Fed typically engages in open market operations, sets the federal discount rate, or sets the reserve requirement. Open market operations, the purchase and sale of government bonds and other securities, is the most commonly used tool by the Fed. The Federal Open Market Committee, or FOMC, conducts these transactions to achieve a targeted money supply. Under expansionary policy, the FOMC purchases government securities, which increases the supply of money circulating in the economy and ensures a functioning banking system. Higher money supply leads to higher inflation, pushing down the federal funds rate. A low federal funds rate can also be achieved if the Fed sets a lower discount rate. If banks are able to borrow funds from the central government at a lower interest rate, the rate at which banks can borrow reserves from one another is also lower.
Wait a minute.
Wow, guys, class was so boring today.
Oh my God, I know. I literally don't understand anything we're learning about anything.
Honestly, like, what is the Fed? Like, who are they?
Let me know.
I know,
Let
so
me know.
confusing.
Like, AP macro and micro, I might as well just, like, not do it. 'Cause,
More like AP.
push myself off a cliff. Oh my god, the stores have been so crowded recently.
I just got a text from the FOMGG. Hey everyone, FOMGG here. Looks like GDP is in a really good place right now at 2.07801 and steadily increasing. But how long can we maintain this? What do you think the Fed should do now? Consider that inflation expectations are at 1.89 as of December 3rd. Since the GDP measures finished goods, we wouldn't ever want it to go down. It could mean longer wait times for your exclusive handbags. XOXO, FOMGG. Oh my god.
Not
my
the
handbags.
Well, if we want the GDP to be high, we should try to keep it where it is because it's constantly increasing.
Also, the inflation right now is at 1.89%, and the Federal Reserve's target rate is 2%. So if we increase the federal funds rate, that could possibly lead to a decrease in inflation, which isn't what we want. The current real GDP is 2.078 and steadily increasing. When GDP is growing, it means that businesses and workers are better off. The Federal Reserve uses the growth rate to decide whether to implement expansionary monetary policy to ward off recession or contractionary monetary policy to prevent inflation. Currently, we are in an expansionary monetary policy. So, what makes up the GDP? Well, we have government spending, consumption, net exports, and interest rates. Consumption is the biggest factor of GDP. Currently, consumer confidence is pretty high and it is also increasing, which is really good for the economy. Unfortunately, exports are decreasing. For example, wheat shipments are sinking to the lowest they've ever been in 44 years.
I'm getting a FaceTime from Serena.
OMG, hey! Can't believe I finally got Wi-Fi so I could FaceTime my other half. Don't know how I've been getting through this without you. But honestly, everything is so cheap in Paris right now, so I'm having a lot of fun. The dollar is currently so much stronger than the euro. The exchange rate is currently $1 to 0.91 euros and €1 to $1.10 in the US. So I can buy everything. Honestly, bought this, bought this, bought this, bought this, bought this. And look at this mask, so authentic. Blessed right now because I'm having such an awesome time. Miss you so much.
Exchange rates tell you how much your currency is worth in another currency. They are the price being charged to purchase that currency. However, these prices are likely to change constantly. So, what affects exchange rates? The demand for a country's currency depends on what is happening in that country. First, the interest rate paid by a country's central bank is a big factor. The higher interest rates make the currency more valuable. Investors will want to exchange their currency for the higher paying one and save it in that country's bank to receive the higher interest rate. Second, the money supply created by the country's central bank. If the government prints too much currency, then there's too many dollars, euros, or yen chasing too few goods. Currency holders will bid up the prices of goods and services. That creates inflation. Some cash holders will want to invest overseas where there isn't inflation. However, they'll find that there isn't much demand for their currency since there's so much of it. That's why inflation can push down the value of a currency.
Dorota! Everything is out of my control. I'm the queen of the Upper East Side. Why is everything going great for Chuck and Serena? It's not fair. I know why. The economy is too good right now. I need to scheme. I'm going to get the FOMC to raise the federal funds rate and mess with everyone.
I'm honestly so annoyed with Blair. She needs to stop scheming.
She's honestly crazy. Love her though.
I mean, what she's doing is really bad, but I don't know.
No, it's not okay. Our economy is at a good place right now, and she can't just mess with that just because she's Blair. Our unemployment rate is at 5.0% and has been decreasing for the past 6 years. At the beginning of this year, it was 5.7%. We've come a long way since 2009 after the recession when it was 10%.
Oh, I didn't know that. I feel like there has to be more unemployed people. None of our friends work.
Yeah, Nate and all of them. Think all the kids we know in the Upper East Side. The unemployment is probably way more than 5%. Also, babies. They don't usually work.
No, it's because the unemployment rate only includes people who are actively looking for jobs. And because we have a low unemployment rate, we have a low output gap. Our resource utilization is good.
So what do we need to keep up with this?
Yeah, I'm confused.
Gosh, keeping the federal funds rate where it is will keep unemployment low because it will keep consumer spending and business profits high. If the businesses are doing well, they will continue being able to employ people.
So, does that mean we should go shopping and help the economy?
Shaking my head.
The unemployment rate is the number in the civilian labor force divided by the number of unemployed. However, everyone without a job isn't necessarily unemployed. To be counted in the unemployment rate, you not only have to be without a job, but you have to actively be looking for a job. Unemployment rate is a good way to measure the economy's growth rate. However, the unemployment rate is a lagging indicator. This means it measures the effect of economic events, such as a recession. The unemployment rate is a powerful confirmation of what the other indicators are already showing. For example, if the other indicators show an expanding economy and the unemployment rate is declining, then you know for sure that businesses are confident enough to start hiring again. The unemployment rate is an important indicator that the Federal Reserve uses to determine the health of the economy when setting monetary policy.
Oh, I really need to go to the supermarket.
New FOMGG boss. Hey Upper East Siders, Gossip Girl here. Over at the Fed, they think using the headline CPI and CPE will make them look better, but little do they know, I'm onto them. Headline numbers include food and energy prices, and gas prices are super low right now, making headline CPI at 0.121 versus core CPI, which is at 1.91, while headline CPE is at 0.218 and core CPE is at 1.289.
That is totally not cool how the Fed is using the CPI instead of the PCE.
Yeah, seriously, the Fed is so two-faced for that.
I feel like it makes more sense to just use PCE though. Like, why would you want all that drama of prices going up and down?
True, and honestly, like, there's such a low threat for inflation. I really hope it just stays where it is right now.
The core inflation rate is the measurement of inflation without food and energy prices. The core inflation rate is measured by both the core consumer price index, or core CPI, and the core personal consumption expenditures price index, or core PCE price index. Why would you want to measure inflation without food and energy prices? It's because those prices fluctuate daily, along with the price of oil, which is traded on the commodities market. Oil prices are highly volatile because commodity traders can bid up oil prices if they suspect actual oil supply or demand will change in the future. Currently, the global oil glut is likely to continue next year as OPEC again declined to curb production and U.S. output remains high. If the core inflation rate starts to creep up above the inflation target rate, which is 2%, the Fed should consider raising their interest rates. But considering that we are in the zone of our 2% inflation rate target, there is no need for the Fed to raise the federal funds rate. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, or PCE price index, is one of the primary government measures of consumer spending on goods and services in the U.S. Personal consumption is 2/3 of total household spending and more than 70% of economic output as measured by GDP. The PCE price index is used in 3 ways. First, it measures inflation trends. When the PCE price index rises, it indicates potential inflation. If the PCE price index were to fall, that would indicate potential deflation. Second, the PCE price index is used to find out how much households spend on consumption versus savings. Higher consumption levels translate directly into a greater GDP growth rate. However, a strong savings rate is good for long-term economic health. That's because savings can be used to fund bank loans for mortgages and business investments. Third, the PCE price index is used to understand trends in the kinds of goods and services that are being bought by households. This is a great way to find out how shopping patterns change in response to sharp price increases, say in gasoline each spring. In that way, the PCE price index can be used to determine whether the demand for various goods and services are elastic or inelastic. In January 2012, the Federal Reserve stated at its monthly FOMC meeting that it would use the PCE price index as its basic measure of inflation.
Hey girl,
What's up?
did you see the payroll employment report?
No, I didn't. What is it?
The payroll employment report gives us an idea of how many people are getting hired by firms in the United States.
Wow, that's so rad. What did the report say?
The report shows that approximately 200,000 people are getting hired by firms each time the report is published. That means the output gap is closing and getting narrower. How sick is that?
Wow, that's honestly dope, girl. I never knew that economics was so cool. What do you think the next report will say?
I think the next report will show that output gap is closing even more. That's only if firms are still hiring people at this rate.
Sweet.
The employment report is very important because the job market is like the heartbeat of the economy. It is both an indicator of economic health, since a strong economy prompts companies to hire more workers, and an engine of growth, since higher employment means more dollars available to be spent on goods and services. The U.S. economy has been adding about 200,000 jobs per month. This indicates that economic activity is fairly strong and the output gap is closing or becoming more narrow since people are getting hired. When payrolls move downward, it leads to recession. And of course, we don't want that. Therefore, the economy should keep itself at its current federal funds rate in order for the output gap to continue to close. This would be a direct result of firms hiring people for work.
Where is she answering? And who am I? That's not a secret I'll never tell. You know you love me. XOXO. Gossip.